Pip would completely get rid of the identity of blacksmith, which his brother-in-law fought for him, and become a rich person of the upper class. Here, Dickens set a sharp question: what life can be created by money? According to ordinary people's understanding, it's good to have money. With so much money, you can live a rich life. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Dickens wants to break the shallow thinking and make people know that there are more important things in life than money. Pip seemed to have a transformation of destiny, suddenly entering the worldly and magnificent life. But Dickens had to show us, under this gaudy surface, what Pip got and lost. Pip entered London's high society, living a life meticulously designed by others. When Estella saw him again, she remarked that Pip's entire demeanor, attire, speech, and even the traces of labor on his body seemed cheap and out of place in such surroundings. This plunged Pip into a profound spiritual crisis, believing that these signs of toil were holding him back, and he began to distance himself from his brother-in-law Joe. Pip wanted to completely transform his identity and image into one befitting the upper class. So when Joe visited him in London later, Pip had nothing to say to him. Joe could see that Pip's spirit was in crisis and knew he needed to prepare to return home, foreseeing a potential catastrophic and shattered outcome for Pip's future. Joe's simplicity lay in his life logic, which was centered around labor. Pip's vast wealth didn't come from labor, and Joe saw Pip facing a tremendous void. Joe himself had penetrating eyes. He saw how Pip was recklessly spending his fortune, realizing that wealth had overshadowed and dismantled Pip from within spiritually. Joe, the laborer, actually provided support for Pip's tumultuous life. For Pip, there was always someone offering acceptance, providing him with a space to return or redeem himself. Joe was so simple. Even when neglected, he didn't resent Pip. In fact, Joe could have easily felt Pip was behaving badly. How could you turn your back on your loved ones when you suddenly have this mysterious money? How could you live in such a despicable manner that people look down upon? I'm done with you from now on. It would have been perfectly reasonable for Joe to react this way. However, Joe deeply understood Pip. He saw him as a naive child. Therefore, Joe didn't take advantage of the situation to benefit himself or indulge in luxury living. Joe's simplicity came from his labor. His life had immense constancy, like a tree with its roots. If Joe were to exchange the foundation of his life for consumption, he wouldn't want to change. Joe, throughout the novel, stood as the backbone, leaving room for Pip to find his way out in the future. Havisham is exactly the opposite of Chiao. She's not Pip's sponsor or guardian, yet she uses that title to exploit Pip without truly benefiting him. Her interactions with the world and her handling of relationships are notably negative. Her relationship with the world is a constant battle. When you strike her, she strikes back for a lifetime. She's deeply wounded and can never move on, with no light in her life. So, being faithless has shaped her entire understanding of the world. Ultimately, she's someone devoid of vitality. Superficially, Havisham wears her wedding dress every day, seemingly resilient, but she's not. For her, true resilience would mean that if a man abandons her, plunging her into despair, she should thank him for freeing her from such falsehood. Then she could discover the life she truly belongs to and the people truly worth loving in this world. That's the attitude of resilience in facing life. If Havisham weren't wealthy, she might find it easier to change. She must move on for survival. But being wealthy, she can create her own illusions. She constructs a tragic space within her grand estate, trying to live in the moment of her wedding day, wearing her gown daily, waited on by others, so she lived in chaos. Havisham is a classic case of someone buried by wealth. She relies on a rudimentary sense of control, only finding dominance in her enclosed environment and maintaining her superior posture. In the novel, Havisham's presence and her tragic nature correspond significantly with Jo, Pip, and Pip's sister. In this novel, Dickens weaves 4 life paths for the main characters. One of the most suspenseful is Havisham's desperate attempt to manipulate and control the relationship between Pip and Estella, as Estella holds the key variable. She's young and won't always live on the track planned by Havisham. As readers, we're constantly curious about how Estella will develop. In the life dominated by Havisham, Estella is fundamentally sidelined, unable to find her footing. She lacks happiness deep within, growing up amidst immense contradictions. In fact, Estella could have avoided these contradictions by accepting superficial men, then retaliating against them for pleasure, to rebel against the male-dominated society by using her beauty to strike those shallow men. But the problem arises when she meets Pip. Faced with such a simple boy, how can she unleash her fists? How can she wield the knife? It's a completely different scenario. So, while Estella wants to toy with him, she also hesitates to harm him, unwilling to trap Pip in her own pitfalls. Thus, Estella's relationship with Pip is fraught with intense internal conflict and struggle.